All right. Woo! Hello, Fanfest. Should we try that again? Hello, Fanfest. It's good to be back. Gotta love it. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm CCP Burger. Like hamburgers, yes, I know. And I'm the creative director of EVE Online. And I want to welcome you to the EVE Keynote. God damn, we waited a long time for this one. First off, I want to thank this year's hosts, the Kaldari State, for hosting Fanfest 2022. The Kaldari is founded on the pillars of duty, loyalty, efficiency, and hard work. While not as large as Galante or Amar, their statue is still universally respected throughout for their economy and technological wonders. This year, Kaldari opens their doors to the newly renovated Gita 4.4 for you, honorable capsuleer, despite your questionable history, standings, and allegiance. I can see a few, questionable people here. It's been 4 years since I stood on stage last time at Fanfest. And it wasn't actually in the keynote, it was in this shenanigans here. Awesome. And like Helmar was talking about earlier, we took a break in 2019 to take EVE on a world tour. From the awesomes of EVE Vegas filled with burgers and American joy, to little more intimacy in Keminosari in Finland. Apparently this is like Finland all the time, but yeah, it's awesome. Here you can see CCP Helmar in deep conversations about wormholes needing more chaos. Well, that break in 2019 became a wee bit longer than we had hoped. But that didn't stop you guys. You've actually been really, really busy since 2019. You've had wars, you have welcomed new and actually shot new players. You forged new alliances, and more and more and more. And to put it into a wee bit of context, we have some stats about what's been going on in the world since 2018, the last time we were here in Reykjavik. So, since last Fanfest in Reykjavik, you have manufactured 277,128,163,031 items. I think there are 32 now because this data was taken half an hour ago. And to put this into context, even more, you've actually manufactured 48,127,647 ships. You've destroyed almost 30 million of them. Job well done. And and then you've blown up like 7.3 million capsules, basic stuff. But the next number is actually one of my favorite numbers because you have also destroyed 1,059 Titans. Not enough, yeah. Let's blow some more shit up. You've had almost 1 billion market transactions, trading this amount of items, worth around, wait for it, I learned a new thing yesterday. 35 quadrillion ISK, and some change, yeah. People sometimes make fun of the Icelandic economy, that it's kind of fake. This definitely makes the Icelandic economy look fake. So, job well done. Woohoo! And all that creation and destruction has brought us, back here to Reykjavik for a fantastic weekend where we can talk and breathe and laugh and cry and form new friendships, all in the EVE universe. And it's pretty awesome. Talking about new friends, over the last couple of years, we've been investing a lot in our new player experience. Really supporting our new players to become stronger cogs in the war machine that EVE is. the steep learning curve. This is an upgraded graph of the steep learning curve. The steep learning curve to get into New Eden has been our reality from the very beginning. And through numerous attempts, we've tried to soften this curve with various results, to say the least. One key problem that we've always run into is that we've always viewed this as a problem, like, hey, here's a problem, can you fix it? Rather than an ever-evolving, long-term initiative. And that's a big, huge change that kind of was kicked off at Amsterdam in 2019. EVE is a vast, complex sandbox with incredible freedom given to the players that make it their home. In the real side of reality, most people don't have core competencies to live an independent life until in their kind of late teens, early 20s, or in my case, much, much later. You will know why at pub crawl tonight. So why in the world should capsuleers be ready to jump into the deep end of the pool after 30 minutes of school? EVE is about world domination or death, whether it's building the strongest army to crush your enemies or assembling a smarter squadron to trap your prey. It's our role as CCP to prepare the hopefuls cadets into your EVE Online, because more players equals more content that equals a better game. Through our focus on new players, we've set 3 core design principles to help frame the new player conversation going forward and ultimately to victory. The ultimate sci-fi experience. First pillar, pretty cool. I want to take you guys a few years into the future and kind of see how the game has changed. The start of playing EVE gets me hooked from the get-go. I can feel I got just thrown 21,000 years into the future, and I'm intrigued to learn more. I really feel one with the game, whether I'm blowing up enemies, mining megaroids, or exploring the new frontier. The universe inspires me to push further into the unknown and forge my own adventure. EVE Online is the benchmark what sci-fi should look and feel like. Easy to grasp, hard to master. I'm coming to EVE decades after it was released. I definitely did not expect to grasp the controls so quickly. It probably helps that I've been playing other games and I've been trading online for a while. I feel like I'm constantly evolving in EVE. Every mission and interaction builds confidence in taking on bigger challenges. When I hit a roadblock, Aura is there to help me. I'm not too worried about catching up with others. It's more about finding my place in the universe and creating my own niche. Fulfills my purpose. EVE is a more integrated part of my day-to-day. The relationships that I build are meaningful, and the things that I do satisfy my curiosity. Like in the real world, the single-shared universe is filled with all sorts of people with all sorts of interests. This is what makes the world unique, exciting, and unpredictable. But what's always predictable is finding something to do, or the game pointing me towards interesting new challenges. With these principles in hand, we set the EVE Academy teams that are focused on new player experience on a road to a better EVE Online. So, here to talk a little bit more about it, I want to welcome CCP Sledgehammer. He always has something brewing, if it's game design systems, beer, sourdoughs, who knows. And then after him, CCP Nomad, my favorite wormholer. Clicker, green is forward.
Hello, everyone. It's actually amazing to see you all here in the flesh again. I'm from Team Odyssey. We're a storyline content team that's part of the Academy segment of EVE Online development. We've spent the last year reimagining what the first moments of gameplay for the new players should be. We're creating a modern, narratively driven storyline experience that introduces players to New Eden while teaching them the basics of the games and its mechanics and showing off its potential. We've leveled up our content authoring capabilities and collaborated very closely with art, audio, cinematics, player research, and tool teams to deliver each installment of this exciting and engaging story, starting with the team's first release in September 2021. So, the first chapter of the Air MPE picks up as soon as the player has created a character and opted into the tutorial. We have a cinematic that introduces the player to New Eden and sets the scene for the first moments of gameplay. And you can see it here. This is the aftermath of an attack on the Air cloning station that you've just woken up in. We worked closely with art, cinematics, and audio to create a smooth transition from the cinematic into the game, which you've just seen. We introduced Aura, who guides you through this experience. We also introduced Balin Ferris, who is leading the evacuation of this besieged facility. And we also introduced Vesper Calatrix, who is the VP of Operations for the Association for Interdisciplinary Research. We established our main narrative hook for the story. That is, who is behind this attack? And we did all of this set against the stunning backdrops that really showcase the beauty and potential of New Eden. So, the next installment we released in March earlier this year. In this, we exposed the player to mining for the first time. This is a low barrier entry into making ISK and EVE Online. So we figured this would be the most sensible place to take the player next. We teach the player how to mine asteroids, what the difference between ore and minerals are, and what they could be used for. We taught them how to sell the ore that they've gathered and where they can see how much ISK they have, so exposing them to the wallet, all with narrative justification. We hint at how mining is the backbone to the economy of New Eden, that there's a vast machine at work toiling day and night to provide the fundamental ingredients for everything that's built in the cluster. And we also revisited aspects of our September release. We always want to strive to improve what we've released. So we updated the skill and fitting moments in that release to provide better narrative justification and a more solid lesson for the player. As you've seen, in the story so far, we introduced several key characters: Aura, Balin, Vesper, and Elias. We want this to be a character-centered experience. Players form strong emotional connections with well-developed characters, and this in turn promotes immersion and engagement in the universe. We don't want the player to feel as if they're alone on their journey. These characters don't just drive the story along, they're your companions on this adventure. It lets us give each career a relatable representative and use these characters to ease the player into more complicated scenarios and mechanics and systems. As we introduce each of these characters, we want the experience around them to feel like a taste of what it'd be like to be a member of that profession, but just a taste. The basic mechanics or core competencies involved in each of these careers. We want to give the players the space to become comfortable in the universe and to instill in them the confidence to reach out on their own in New Eden. Underpinning all of this work is an incredibly powerful new content authoring system that we've made alongside the content. We call this Noddy. It's short for the Node Graph Editor. It's highly flexible, letting us trigger a plethora of events from any condition that we can track on the client or on the server. Every piece of UI guidance, action that an NPC takes, a goal that a player has to satisfy, or music and cutscenes that play in our experience are all queued up and scheduled by this service and this tool. We built this alongside the Air MPE, and this is very important, but we want this to be the standard tool for content development in EVE moving forwards. We'll talk more about this tomorrow on this stage. The next installment of the Air MPE is going to focus on exploration. We know from survey data that the idea of exploration is what brings a lot of new players into the game. But we don't just want to show them the functionality of a probe scanner or how to hack a can. We want to instill in them the emotional values of exploration. What's behind that next Stargate? Is there anything interesting in this cosmic signature? Who did I just see on D-scan? We want to make sure that the player appreciates the scale of the universe, is humbled and inspired by its complexity and its majesty. We have a high-level design for this, but we want to let this mature over the next few months. I just want to let you know, though, that we're not going to be sitting idle in the meantime. As I mentioned, we're dedicated to improving things that we've released. We don't want to fire and forget. And we have extensive data points to reference for our entire experience so far. Looking at this, we can see some clear areas for improvement. So part of what we want to do in the next few months is harden up this experience so that we can dive headlong into the next chapter, confident that we've given it our best in the beginning. But that's not all we want to do before then. career agents. We lead the player to the career agents during their MP as a handoff to find more activity, to become more familiar with other professions. The art team are working on a massive visual update in its early stages for all of the career agent content. And we on Team Odyssey are going to be looking to introduce a guidance layer, assess the rewards, make sure any missing critical information is presented to the player clearly and not buried in local chat. With Team Pathfinder, we're also looking to give the agent conversation UI an update. We'll have more details on that tomorrow as well. More excitingly for all you guys, I think, is that we're prototyping applying our node graph editor to missions and to existing dungeons. This is in its infancy right now, but this is the focus for the team over the next few months. We'll be here at 12 o'clock tomorrow to talk more about this if you want to see any juicier details. I'll pass it over to CCP Nomad now, who's going to talk to you more about character progression and career progression. Thank you very much.
Hello, Fanfest. That's a noble goal, isn't it? Keep new players. How do we do that? We focused on one of the possible answers to that question. Just keep them busy. Give them something interesting to do, and they will stay. So what is there interesting to do in Eve? Let's see what you guys have to say about that. Who has seen this? Show of hands. All right. So this was made by one of you, Altru. I hope I spelled that correctly. And this shows what there is to do in Eve, all kinds of activities. But what it is lacking is just saying what stuff there is to do, but there's no way to explain how to do it. In other words, OK, I want to be an explorer and do hacking. How do I go from here, from seeing this screen, to actually doing it in-game? Before I explain where this is going, I will show you another complexity of Eve. So those are the skill groups. There's 23 of them, and it's already make it difficult to pick what you want to train out of this selection. But what happens when we go deeper? Oh, God. There's 461 skills in Eve, and it's not easy to decide what to train, when to train it. So back in September, we simplified this choice. We released the skill plans. We compiled lists of skills into certified skill plans, and they take away the complicated choice and allow you to easily progress your character before you know how to do it, really. So certified skill plans not only provide you with the list of skills, but also with the information about suggested fitting for particular activity and the links to the agency so you can find the content that might be of interest to you. Then 2 months later, after the September, we released the corporation skill plans so you guys can do this help for your recruits. Thank you. So we solved the skills problem, kinda, with the skill plans so far. How do we deal with this monster? Let me introduce you to Air Career Program. It guides you through a multitude of activities in each career so you can easily access and experience all areas of the game. This new system monitors everything you do, no consent needed. Right. It provides you with the rewards for completed goals, allows you to get a good picture of what there is to do in Eve and to choose who I want to be, what I want to be doing, what I should be doing now. As I said, it tracks all your actions, gives the rewards, including skill points and skins. This is mostly focused for new players, but all of you will experience this in one way or another. It pushes you to interact with all types of gameplay, and it gives you career-related free expert systems to allow you to try out ships before you train into them. So then you can make the choice of what to train after you have tried it out. Finally, it creates capable EVE players who know what to do and how to do it. A couple of examples of goals. In total, there's 188 of them from various areas of the game. Some require focused effort, like hacking 20 containers in null. You need to make a choice to do so. Others will be fulfilled passively, like randomly warp disrupting people. And in some situations, the new players might need your veteran help to fulfill their goals, like here. Like mentioned before, the Air Carrier program will provide the players with free expert systems that will allow them to try out multiple ships. And you can see in the next slide, you will see the list of ships. But there's one expert system for each career, and they will be provided as a reward for completing that career agent missions. So very early in the game, players will have access to a bunch of ships that otherwise they would have to train for. So those are the ships that the new players will be able to fly without having to train them. So what else we are working on besides the Air Carrier program? How about this? All right, if you are interested in any of what I said or CCP/Hammer just said, come and see us tomorrow at the same stage at 12. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, man. Wow, pretty exciting stuff. So, we aim to teach players core competencies by folding the lessons into an engaging narrative that gives people purpose and goals rather than sending them to school. We all to make them better capsuleers for your ranks. But the big question is, has it worked? So, this is a pretty complex one, so bear with me. Here, you're looking at the median average session length by session. No, wait. It's way more complicated than that, sorry. It's the moving average of median session lengths in minutes by session over the last 4 months. Just want to make sure that our data team doesn't kill me after this. On the right, you can see the session numbers. The first really interesting line here is the orange line on the bottom. That's the median average first session. Back in 2018, when I was standing on the stage, this number was 13 minutes. And it's sitting at 27 minutes today, which is pretty huge. And this is no alts, just new players. And what's actually interesting here is that by giving people purpose, by teaching them how to mine and giving them proper goals, we're actually starting to push up the sessions after the first session, which is really important. But this is pretty complex, and I can definitely simplify it. What this basically means is that people are playing. And because you love some graphs, let's see some more. This is the percentage of first logons with the market rating within the first 7 days. So players are taking more part in the economy. New players are taking more part in the economy. And if we look at young players' wealth, here we're looking at the 25th percentile of active wallets. Back in 2018, that number was sitting at 360,000, just over, but it's now at 609,000. So new players are finding more ways to make money. And if we look at skill points in queues for alphas, back in 2018, we were at 65,000 skill points. but today, we're at 950,000 skill points. And that's actually 1,361.54% growth. So new players are planning for the future. It's great. But making EVE more accessible isn't all about adventures. No fantastic story will ever fix shitty UI, just like no fantastic UI will ever fix a shitty story. I totally stole that quote from Jintan. If you're here, thank you. Sorry, I bastardized it. And we've made massive investments, as you might have noticed, into UI and UX over the last few years. All with the goal of making EVE easier to understand and harder to master. We want to create more reasons to look at space. And we want to use common and consistent gaming language throughout. And this is a huge task. We've been developing this game for over 19 years. So, to take on that project and talk about it a little more, I want to welcome on stage CCP Unison, our lead UI designer. Please don't call him a graphic designer. You should much rather call him the head of mission control efficiency.
Hello, guys. I'm so excited to see you all here. I'm pretty new to CCP, and I'm one of those 60% that Hilmar talked about. This is my first Fanfest since I started, so super glad to be here. But I'm not new to EVE Online. My dad used to work at Skivon, which is the place that sold the first ever copy of EVE Online, and I remember him coming home on release date with a boxed copy of the game, and we were like super hyped playing it on our home PC together, like similar to this one here. I just wanted to show this to emphasize that it's been almost 20 years since the game came out, and 20 years is a long time in gaming and an even longer time in UI design. A lot changes in this time. And over 20 years of development, our UI had started to show its age. So in the beginning of last year, we asked ourselves, how do we prepare our UI for the third decade? What fundamentals do we need to fix to be able to move forward? When new players start playing EVE, they need to learn how to use our UI and know how to interact with it. We can look at our UI as a visual language. And if we do that, we don't want to be teaching German in one window and then have to teach Japanese in the next one. So as you can see here, our button library had become way overloaded with over 100 different styles. So we really needed to start by fixing the inconsistencies with our designs to be able to build upon it. Our answer to tackle this problem is Photon, our new design system. We released it on TQ in April, and we released it as an opt-in beta. The reason why we did that was to be able to get your feedback on it as early as we possibly could. After a month on TQ, we've had over a 5% adoption rate, which is a lot more than we expected. And we've gotten super valuable feedback from you guys. We've written blogs about it, posted videos, posted on our forums, and we're really grateful for the time and effort you put into it. So thank you for that. We're actively working on improvements for Photon based on your feedback. And the first big one we're tackling is the combat mode, which will tackle the issue of some windows taking up too much space. We're also working on improvements for the notification system for the Neocom, which will get rid of the infamous red dot. But we'll also tone down the constant blinking that we have in the Neocom today. After we've ironed out most of the kinks, we really look forward to bring more life and enjoyment into the UI with animations and enjoyable interactions, like this one here for the undock button. I just really would love to undock all day with this thing. It's quality of life improvements like these, combined with your valuable feedback, that we feel will make the difference for Photon. We're planning a nice update to it in June with a full release in the coming fall. And after laying the foundation with Photon, we can look beyond the basics and how we can improve the immersion and sci-fi feel, for example, by giving players more reasons to look into space and interact with it. And we want to give people more enjoyable interactions, like in this example here, we will add depth and perspective to make it feel like it belongs more in the world that we're creating. We also want to look at how we interact with the core controls of the game. These are very, very early concepts and explorations to display how the heads-up display could work like in Eve. The HUD reacts to your needs and surroundings. We want to allow you for maximum flexibility. So if, for example, you want to have 4 overview windows open, we want you to be able to do that. Laying a good and consistent foundation with Photon will open up the opportunities for us to bring even more immersion and create a more visual future for the UI in Eve. Thanks a lot, guys.
So much goodness. So, we've covered a lot of ways on how to make sure that our new capsuleers stick around and find their path in New Eden. But that's just half the challenge. It's also about finding these new recruits willing to take on the challenge of New Eden. And to dominate the world, you need to be everywhere. A couple of years ago, we announced Eve Anywhere, a cloud-based platform that allows Omega players to play Eve on any browser. Eve Anywhere is a game changer for Eve, as it keeps New Eden at your fingertips and allows you to log on from any computer and even cars. Please don't Eve and drive, please. It's been amazing to see how well you guys have actually adopted this and given us incredibly important feedback to help us improve the experience. So thank you, thank you, thank you. After all this testing, we're at a place where we can actually start scaling up Eve Anywhere. We're actually going to velvet rope this scaling because we don't want things to go up in flame just yet, please. So starting May 16th, we are actually going to open up Eve Anywhere for alpha players in the territories that we're already serving. And then later this year, we will start to expand to new territories. So look out for that. Also, over the last few years, we've greatly improved our localized experience in Eve, with better tooling and better delivery, allowing more players to enjoy explosions in their own language. We've localized the game into Korean, and we're well on our way with our next localized language. Thank you, no. It's the most requested language by players, Spanish. The Eve Spanish-speaking community is super passionate. It's incredibly resourceful, and they love a good fight. I actually stole this picture from the biggest Spanish Eve community on Facebook. There are a fantastic bunch of people, and they dream about building their own alliance. So it's going to be pretty interesting where they claim their space. I wonder who is going to give up space for them. Every time we roll out a new language, we learn a lot. When we did Korean, we set up a Korean council, and we worked with a Korean publishing partner to really understand kind of player jargon, how Koreans play the game, kind of what were the niches, and so on. And we're doing the same thing with Spanish. We're setting up a Spanish player council to collaborate with, but we also want to try something new. Spanish is a very widely spoken language, so we're actually going to roll out an early batch of the Spanish localization in September for the awesome community to give us proper feedback on the translation with a full release later in the year. So, Spanish, woo! So, now that we've covered getting new recruits into your ranks, I think we should take a look at what you have been doing to each other over the last few years. To kick us off, please welcome the star, the legend, the nicest walk-in encyclopedia about EVE Online, my dear friend, CCP Swift.
Thank you, CCP Berger. I don't know about nicest walking encyclopedia, but I have been a student of EVE Online since I've started playing in 2004. I am fascinated by the stories you tell. I was privileged enough to tell a few stories myself as a player, which was really fun. But we are pretty much the only game that has filled not one, but 2 history books just from player-created stories. Now, whether you're a new player, an old player, PvPer, explorer, builder, sometime in the last couple of years, you've taken part in some sort of invasion. There's been a few. The 2 notable ones, obviously, the Triglavian invasion, when the Triglavians came in and took 27 systems. And of course, a lot of you guys here in the audience were in World War II. Yeah. Yeah. Frank's gone. It's fine. Each of these invasions had kind of different strategies, different metas, different stories, and of course, different results. But there are some neat similarities, and whenever you guys tell a story, we are here to listen to it and kind of figure out how we can enable you to tell even better stories in the future. So yeah, First Blood at Raravos. So this is the first system that the Triglavians actually successfully took. I think this is where, for a lot of you guys, or at least for me, this is where it kind of clicked. Like the amount of chaos that EVE players could ensue over New Eden, watching this system go from high sec to low sec to null sec. People come in and die. Tens of thousands of you came in there to try and fight forward and fight against it. A lot of you streamers and content creators brought fleets in here. A lot of null-sec people came in and brought fleets in here just to have a good time. And yeah, if Raravos was where you guys figured out that you could create chaos, Niarja is where you guys completely broke through everything. Some incredible players at the Arataka Research Consortium. I know I saw Uriel in here somewhere, but I know there's a few of you. When the Triglavians were invading, they were able to kind of map out and find kind of systems that it might work for. And the Arja was a candidate. And of course, when push came to shove, no one could really stop this from happening. EVE players said, hey, this is a really handy connection between Jita and Amar. It's the only way to connect these 2 regions together. Wouldn't it be cool if we just broke it for fun? Yeah, and then you did, and it was miserable for a lot of people, but I think that makes EVE players. But yeah, this is kind of where really you guys left your mark, your indelible mark onto New Eden. But that's not the only invasion. Although some of you guys were in both of them. In fact, many of you were. These 2 kind of did overlap quite a bit. In the summer of 2020, nullsec feels like everywhere went to war. They went south. And again, just like in the Triglavian invasion, there were some interesting strategies, stories, and results. This one is probably my favorite. The game is super old. You guys are very, very adept at coming up with strategies and new ways to kind of trap and kill one another. But Operation Enno was something just completely different, something that EVE had never seen before. If you're unfamiliar, the Imperium baited out a Pappy super capital fleet, and then they logged on Titans that were just like pristinely located to try and doomsday them and get them all at once. So it didn't quite work, but I know as someone who was in a Nyx getting doomsdayed, I was like, oh shit. And this is just like one of my favorite moments. It shows the sheer creativity of EVE players. When we introduced like these doomsdays, no one would have suspected that EVE players would come up with something like this. Incredibly inventive people. But they're not the only ones. As Pappy were getting their foothold into Delve, incredible, literal record-breaking fights broke out. FWST, YZ9, they were long, they were bloody, they broke records. And it was nuts just to see how the FCs and the players adapted day to day, week to week. Pappy said, hey, I see what these guys are doing. They're warping carriers in. Why don't we just use these bubbles? What could go wrong? And then the keep star kind of went up. Just amazing ingenuity. Sometimes you think you've got the game figured out, but Eve is very good at humbling you and letting you know that, hey, someone's going to come up with a better idea just around the corner. And you guys are all motivated to come up with the next great idea. So if I were to write slides for all the cool things we learned at CCP, the keynote would be about 6 hours long, and they said I couldn't do that. But we did learn quite a bit about these two invasions and kind of learned about how you guys as players interacted. And like I said, when you guys tell stories, we want to listen and kind of give you more about that. So yeah, you guys, completely unpredictable. I was telling someone who didn't really quite understand Eve how ship balance works and how game balance works. And I said, okay, well, if you give Eve players a piece of wood, you might expect like a spear, a sword, something to smack someone with, because they're notorious for that. Nope, Eve players would surprise you and build like a bike. You don't know how they did it, but they did it. And now you're like, okay, so they built a bike. I'll give them this rock now. It's new. They're going to build some sort of cool car with it or something. Nope. You guys will build some sort of like trebuchet. And then that's how you'll use this rock that we gave you. But one thing is true. If we give you sand and tools to mess with the sandbox, you guys will tell amazing stories and just use these tools in ways that we could never imagine. And that's something that we want to keep doing. And so, CCP Burger, tell us a little bit more about how that's going to work out.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean... Yeah, I mean that's exactly what we want to do. We want to give you tools to tell amazing stories, and to create new bonds, and we want New Eden to respond to your actions. And how did we get there? As we mentioned a few months ago, we're moving away from quadrants. After the invasion arc, there were a lot of big and small problems that we had to kind of dive into and deal with. When we were identifying these issues, we saw that splitting the year up into 4 would really help us on that path. It allowed us to tackle really big things like AFK cloaking, ship iterations, events, new objectives to fight over, new sites, so on and so on and so on. We tackled a lot of hard problems while at the same time rolling out regular events and ship balance updates. But now, with our foundation even more solid, our design team has more freedom to work on this solid base. But we're actually going to go into that a little bit more later. Throughout quadrants, the biggest and most difficult project we took on was resource distribution and gathering. It's a monumental project that really helps us set up for the 3rd decade. To go deeper into this and the effect of this change, and what it means to have a solid foundation, I want to welcome onto the stage a really dear friend of mine. We used to be in a team together. We mostly asked for forgiveness rather than permission. It's my dear CCP Larrikin. Look at this today. Look at this. What could possibly go wrong?
So, those of you who look at their monthly economic report, this will probably look a little bit familiar. This is a volume of ore that has been mined over the last year. Specifically, this is all ore that you can refine and turn into a spaceship or a module. So that's ore from asteroid belts, ore from moons, anything like that. And we're going to dig into this data a little bit more. And to start with, we're going to go back 10 years. So this is all the way back to 2012. And to make it easier to explore this data, we're going to define some time periods. So at the moment, we're in New Dawn. Prior to that is the infamous shortage phase. Before that is the reign of the Rorqual, and We'll be talking about why it's called that shortly. And before that, we also have, during the reign of the Rorqual, during this little red period here, that was actually what Blackout did to the ore being mined. And before that, we have the historic phase. So to continue our exploration, we're going to break down the volume of ore mined by each ship type. So this is mining barges. Pretty simple. In blue, we have exhumers. In yellow, we have every other single ship that has ever fitted a mining laser and mined, excluding the Rorqual. In fact, during the reign of the Rorqual, Rorquals mined more cubic meters of ore than every other ship combined. And they did it with less players too. In fact, during the reign of the Rorqual, there was about 48,000 unique characters flying Rorquals compared to 1.6 million flying all the other ship types. So what happened to all this ore? Where did it go? What did you guys do with it? Well, we're going to look at subcapital ship production by hull size. And don't get me wrong, there's certainly variation during this time period, but on the whole, subcapital ship production has actually been pretty stable. What about capitals? This is just super capitals. And during the reign of the Rorqual, on one single day, there were 29 Titans delivered and 47 supercarriers. This is not sustainable. It was a massive concentration of wealth and resources. Now, the goal of shortage phase was the democratization of the economy, to spread that wealth out a little bit. And are we there yet? No, we have some work to do, especially around capitals, as this graph will definitely show. But we're working on it. But we're getting there. We've seen a 10 to 20% increase in the daily volume of ore mined by each character with mining frigates. We've seen an 8 to 16% increase for mining barges. And we've seen a 30% increase for mining exhumers. And perhaps more importantly, the distribution of ore being mined by region is a little better in New Dawn compared to the reign of the Rorqual. During the reign of the Rorqual, one single region produced 27% of all ore. Mining is just one part of the complex ecosystem, complex economy of EVE Online. And we're looking at more than just mining, and we're constantly tweaking and working on it. But ultimately, we believe that a more equitable distribution of resources results in more players in space, and more players in space makes for a better EVE Online for everyone. If you want to know more, please come to the data presentation roundtable. Cheers.
Equitable distribution of resources. Larkin, you really make EVE sound like spreadsheets in space. It's hard to be a creative director sometimes when you have all this spreadsheet loving. But you know, as you all know, strategic plans for world domination definitely require deep planning, and we've seen corporations and alliances actually invest a lot into data, you know, for intelligence or efficiency or what you may have it. And the initial knowledge and the cost of setting up these systems can be pretty daunting for small groups. And with this in mind, we actually reached out to our friends at Microsoft Excel. I'm not lying. We actually reached out to them, and they were like, "Oh my God, we love EVE." Like I was saying, data is massively important to many advanced playstyles in EVE. And by simplifying the access to data for all, we will level the playground when it comes to the tools of the sandbox. With Microsoft, we're building an extension that will allow players to log in and pull data directly into Excel. It's not April Fool's, this is for reals. And this is a real prototype working. If it's for, satisfying your curiosity, if it's for, maximize your industrial enterprise or managing your frontline warfare, it's in your hands to create the tools for your advancement. This is still in early phase, and we look forward to sharing more later in the year. But this is pretty wild stuff. Even though many claim that mining is a numbers game, we want to give you more reasons to look at space. And throughout our work on the new player experience, we've been developing a lot of new tools. Among others, a new way to create huge megaroids in space. We want to dress up the mining scenes. We want to make them exciting. We want to make them fun to look at and engaging. To begin with, you will not be able to interact with those megaroids, but who knows what the future brings. And on the topic of visuals, one of EVE's signature is the consistent and beautiful visuals and audio. The visual experience is a key contributor on our vision pillar of the ultimate sci-fi experience, where capsuleers are transferred from the day-to-day to 21,000 years into the future. Audio and visuals are an evolving moving target, with new technology unlocking new ways to make the world even more beautiful. Therefore, to set up for the third decade, it's important to never settle into set ways and be constantly searching, pushing, and reevaluating how we present new Eden. And to tell you more about that, and give you a small glimpse into the future of EVE, I want to invite the wizard, CCP Myrkur, that through his beautiful magic makes everything fun to blow up. And his enabler, CCP Caffeine, who allows you all to blow up a lot of stuff at the same time. Take it away.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's absolutely fantastic seeing people in person. It's been a crazy few years, that's for sure.
Great to be back at Fanfest, guys.
Absolutely. So the last few years for us, we've made some absolutely massive technical investments in the EVE client. In 2020, we went 64-bit entirely. There's not a single bit of 32-bit code left in EVE Online. So this was really focusing on cleaning up some of that technical debt, which we all joke about and has been kicking around for a long time, and we finally got there. This offers much better performance, especially in those kind of big wars that you keep having. You can bring more ships than ever after this 64-bit upgrade. With the foundation set, we were finally able to port EVE Online natively to an entirely different operating system where we released the native Mac client. There is way more Mac players than most people realize. It's very, very popular with EVE players. So we did the 64-bit, we ported it to Mac OS, we rebuilt our entire pipeline internally of how we build the client, and again, we removed a massive amount of technical debt for this. We could finally say goodbye to our old wine client. And if there were Mac users in here that used that wine client, we know it was in a bit of a bad state. So hopefully this has improved it. We also launched with M1 support from day one. This was great. It had a massive uptake, way bigger again than we actually thought it would be. And the Mac client is now on par in terms of how it looks and how it plays with our Windows client. Actually, with one exception, and that is to skill plans, which is coming in the release next month. As part of this work, we really started the main development to make EVE as platform agnostic as possible. So we're in the best situation we could ever be in if we want to target other operating systems and other architectures in the future. Once we release the Mac client, we could finally get rid of DirectX 9. So I don't know how many of you have the original box that come with Eve. Have many of you in the crowd? Cool. So if you actually check out the disk on that, we had to install DirectX 9 as part of the Eve installation. It's been with us basically from the start. It's the best part of 20 years old, DirectX 9. It was taking up significant development resources internally, and we couldn't offer a lot of the features that we wanted to offer you on DirectX 9. Every single feature we wanted to put into Eve needed an implementation for this. Opportunity cost for it was just too great. On the plus side, by removing DirectX 9, it does mean now we can focus on bringing you DirectX 12, which will be shipping this year. We have a working version internally. We'll be announcing the mass tests for this very shortly. It's actually not far off. So while we're excited to be shipping DirectX 12 to you and looking at what we can bring to you, we have managed to ship some pretty big graphical updates this year on our current tech. Updates like
bring out Eve's colors, which saw us delete the gray and deepen Eve's output colors to a much wider range by updating our tone mapper to something much nicer, as you can see right here. There we also adjusted the overall look of Eve, updating our shaders to take in more of the environment. Ships now really feel like they're inside the world. Wherever you are in the universe, they look like they're there. And after all, one of the pillars of EVE Online since the very beginning has been the pursuit of beautiful graphics. And our investments into the tools to make those over the last couple of years accumulated and paid massive dividends in upping the quality of the new player experience, paving the path with exciting and dynamic visuals, as well as engaging first steps content for your soldiers and troops of tomorrow to walk down. And even if the new player experience is the catalyst, then in the long run, everyone will benefit. And just a short while ago, we spent time on improving our reflections in aid to make these environments look even better. More things are now reflected in real time, and this is cool because you can see things like explosions reflect on ships now. Things like wormholes also now reflecting on your ships. Sino beacons, stations, jump gates, they're all included in reflections now. These little additions across the game are making Eve just, that little bit more realistic. So where you are, things are reflecting on you.
Thank you. All right, so what's next? Just a disclaimer that everything that you will see is work in progress and is subject to change. So the first one, and as a player myself, I'm super excited for this one, is high-resolution nebulas. This is coming in the June release. We've doubled the resolution. There's significantly less banding, and we've also changed the type of compression that we use. And these look absolutely amazing in-game. We've also entirely overhauled what we call our level of detail system. So all games use this. If you're not familiar with it, it's how we render things like polygons and textures based on the distance from the camera. The new system that we're using has been rewritten from scratch because the existing one is, it's as old as the game itself. I think it's 19 years old, so it needed a bit of love. We used to have 3 levels before, and that's actually quite restrictive for the artists. Now we've got as many as we need. This feeds really nicely into being able to make absolutely huge scenes. It also allows us to do things like automatic switching. So I'm sure we've all seen this in the client at the moment. You'll change your camera, and things will kind of snap in between different models. That will be gone. Also, better performance. And this is particularly noticeable for anyone on a mid or a low-end machine, because we have to render less polygons now, you get a higher frame rate. And also, we can create higher fidelity meshes. You may have already seen a few sneak peeks of these in some of the slides already. The LOD improvements aren't just about polygons, though. They also relate to things like textures and how we instance things inside of the game. So previously, we could only ever change a texture on a model when we change the model. That's no longer the case. We can change them independently. Doesn't sound like much, but that's an absolute massive boom to being able to do things like put 1,000 keep stars on grid and then fly through them without any performance impact, compared to what we had before anyway. Please don't try and do that. That's not a challenge. We've not shipped it yet. I know that you're going to use it in a way we haven't predicted and then probably have to redevelop a few things. But it's absolutely awesome. We can genuinely make these huge areas of space now with models that are absolutely massive. It also feeds into other things like attachments, which you're probably very familiar with from turrets, and also things like particle systems. They really leverage the advantage of this.
Hello? Okay, good. One of these new things is lit particles. We just implemented these for us to start using, which for my visual effects artist self is just like, it's an exciting time, it's great. And this is an example of what that might look like. This basically means that newly authored particle systems can now receive light from nearby light sources or from the local star. And expect us to get a lot better at using these over time. Right now it's very much early days, but I think you can see this holds a lot of promise. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've always really enjoyed this one particular moment from the Birth of the Capsuleer trailer. Our cinematics team did a great job as usual, and we've been thinking, could we do something like that in game? Something inspired by that? You want to see what we have so far? Yeah! Now, okay, I have to say a couple things first. In the following video, just focus on the ship. Some parts have been sped up, and it is work in progress. So let's get the audio on this. Let's go. Yeah, I forgot to click. What was that? Well, anyways, this is just a little part of what investing in our foundations brings. Investing in our engine, in our tooling, and we're doing a lot of that, which is giving us the ability, unlocking and enabling us to do things that are simply higher quality, simply way cooler, and more awesome things than ever before. And this all leads into the Eve of tomorrow being more beautiful, a more immersive and visceral experience.
Of course, this is a lot of graphical enhancements that we're putting in the client, and we want to make sure as many people as possible can enjoy these. So one of the integrations that we'll be doing this year is AMD's Fidelity FX Super Resolution, which will allow you to play the game at a higher resolution at a lower performance cost. In addition to that, we'll also be adding FreeSync. So if you have a FreeSync compatible monitor, you'll be able to enjoy the smoothest experience so far without any screen tearing whatsoever. Sorry.
If you like some of that and you want to know more, or just happen to enjoy pleasingly arranged pixels, and want to see what we're planning on doing with them, then come to the Art of Eve Into the Third Decade presentation right in this room at 3 p.m. today. We have a presentation that is absolutely packed to the brim to show you. And stop by the art corner, somewhere up there in the building, and say hi. The artists, they don't bite, you know. They want to hear from you.
If you're interested on how we build EVE Online, the journey to a native Mac client, or perhaps you just want to chat about DirectX, then drop by the round table tomorrow at 10 o'clock in room 2, and we would love to hear any ideas that you've got, as well as show you what we're currently working on. Thank you, Fanfest.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stuff. So, when trying to understand New Eden, it's really good to look at a city. The city has plenty of system functions, like buildings, infrastructure, schools, and so on. And then, on top of that, the city has its inhabitants, people, animals, plants, trees. The actual city happens at the intersection of the two, filled with agenda, emotion, compromise, and so on. You have the more secure parts of town where you can go about your business without too much harassment. But there's always the east side, you know, if you're into that. Each player and classic empire of EVE can be viewed as a city-state, where interests of each faction is built around their beliefs, their needs, and their needs drive their agenda. Conflict or compromise, it's in your hands to navigate. But unlike the real city, our inhabitants' ability to shape the world is quite limited. We strive to create virtual worlds more meaningful than real life. And in many ways, we do. You know, you guys seem to like the game and the world. Friendships are formed, big achievements conquered, beautiful things are built and then destroyed, as it should. But once you look past the incredible player simulation, the world is pretty static and predictable. You'll always have multiple parallel simulations going on at the same time. But it's time to elevate the empire and the universe simulation. We use this as basis for 3 vision pillars for challenging you all, the core. I belong here. I want to take you a few years into the future again to talk a little more about that. New Eden is colored by the people that occupy it. Inhabitants claim their stake and become masters of their surroundings. EVE Online is and has always been about people dealing with people. And this goes way beyond PvP or trade. From selecting another player to entering a new space, you can always read a story. From metals showing achievements to megastructures honoring the rulers of that given system. Cruel but fair. New Eden's rules of engagement are clear and consistent, and I can apply the knowledge from one part to the next. The real difference lies in the environment and the people that occupy each system. Even though some of the changes are out of my area of control, I feel my influence shape the outcome of it. When things go wrong, I can see how it happened, adapt, and continue. Vibrant metropolis. New Eden is a playground where systems and emotions build a perfect, vibrant metropolis. As you travel through the regions, you're reminded of Earth cities from 21,000 years ago, where the streets tell the story of the people that have claimed it their home. And just like the city, it never stops. It's in your hands to shape it to your needs. EVE Online happens when the constraints of the system meets the dwellers of New Eden. The universe is alive and kicking, and it's in our hands to make it what we want. If it's influencing the imperial agenda or setting course for your own empire, one thing is for sure, the world will never be the same again. To dive deeper in how we're taking these vision pillars and applying them to our work, I want to invite three great friends. CCP Rattari, who was once a financial guy. I'm sure you don't know that, but he was an avid FPS player, so he ended up just doing games, which is way better. Then we have CCP Loki, the one-man production team behind the scope, and I guess he's like the Swiss Army knife of CCP. And then CCP Aurora. I mean, we should call her CCP Super Ninja Star. I mean, she's amazing. So Rattari, take it away.
Thank you, Birger. So thank you, Birger, for that presentation or introduction to me. We're here, and we're ready to talk about the future of the living universe. Now that we have a solid foundation, our plans are ambitious and achievable. So let's get right into it. EVE players are a big family. And this is my 15th Fanfest as a CCP developer. And to me, Fanfest is a family reunion with food and drinks and relatives that you're not sure you missed. But you all made it, and we're all here together. And it makes me really happy to know that you all had a second family during the last 2 or 3 years. But we're not just a family. We're all members of different groups, both formal and informal. Some are welcoming, some are invite-only, some are merit-based, and some are simply circumstance. When we belong to a group, you've already gone through 3 stages. Categorization, who am I, and which group do I identify with? And you're also in identification, who are the other groups, and how do they look and behave? And ultimately, in comparison, how are they like me, and how are they unlike me? For these 3 stages, it's good to have a common language. Humans thrive off of creating emotional response to others, such as fear, respect, or desire. And within the EVE community, there are 3 strongest emotions that we identify. Unity, I have a sense of belonging. Valor, I'm proud to be one of the best. And duty, I help each other and feel good about it. And we want you to help you to express those to others. Now, social expression was not invented in the 20th century. Lords on the battlefield needed to identify each other. They needed to either attack or avoid or flee an opponent and rally their troops. Through heraldry, they would express heritage, achievements, experience, importance, and wealth. So how do I see myself, and most importantly, how do others see me? And what do I want them to understand about me? I'm a badass with tattoos. I fly a blinked battleship. I'm a proud member of university. But I'm also holding a high Kaldari rank. And I'm an Alliance tournament winner. And I feel kinship with the Guristas. Which brings us to who are we and what do we stand for? We're World War B survivors. We're charitable. We're friends in real life, and we come to Fanfest to meet each other. And we're proud to present our vision of heraldry for EVE Online and a path to the following elements of achievement. Alliance logos and patterns on ships. The supercarrier holograms unlocked incredible opportunities. Holograms that change and grow based on your achievement, like standings or kill marks. And attachments. unlocked by the new art and graphics technology presented before. Next year. I promise. I've been trying. Holograms and billboards, and structure skins, ambience, and logos. And a vision of a fully customizable structure and ship. So heraldry will be acquired through Interbus credits, a new in-game currency that cannot be bought directly, only earned. It can never be traded between characters, cannot be sold, and does not have an exchange rate to any real money, Plex, ISK, or any other currency. Every character can generate Interbus credits through select activities engagement. Made for players, by players, is the first activity that will grant IBCs. I'll talk more about that at our 11 presentation tomorrow. In addition, characters will generate IBCs to their corporation while they are members. So corporations and players can both buy heraldry, which is non-tradable. And Omega is the key. It already grants double XP and access to all skills, but Omega Clone State will give a major boost to any and all acquisition of IBC. For those that are interested, I'll cover this core loop and explain Interbus credits in full detail tomorrow, so be there. This obviously needs updates to the fitting window. So we'll unify the experience between heraldry and modules. And here's a very quick visualization of what it could look like with these new opportunities. Logos, holograms, logos, dies, CEO holograms. And who wants to build a statue of their CEO, or even yourself? I think that's a pretty good goal. And this is the full suite. So, pausing a bit, we're hard at work for multi-account benefits. And progress against this fairly long roadmap is very promising. We're absolutely committed to a tiered reward system to benefit our veterans. And I have no further update today, nor this Fanfest, but this is a high priority for us. I just wanted you to know that. But we all want stronger organizations that can recruit, train, and retain new players. This is why we're investing in a lot of support, like better tools, social income, which I'll talk about tomorrow, analytics and planning through spreadsheets and space, improved retention, and with a particular focus on less griefing, and smarter training, as we've seen today. Air Academy, career program, and improved career agents. So we're going to be investing heavily into the Vibrant Metropolis pillar because it's important for both new and old players to log in every day and feel that the world is living, breathing, and adapting and filled with new opportunities. This is a real commitment and not something we can do in a patch or two. But we're not going to go into a cave either and come out with a perfect solution in 12 months. We want to keep the rapid release spirit alive, adjust, iterate, and improve. And I hope to see you again tomorrow, where we share additional clues about this. But now, I'd like to welcome CCP Aurora, who will explain to us what this strategic commitment really is.
Thank you very much. All right, everyone. Hello. So, let's talk about gameplay. In particular, let's talk about faction warfare. I am very pleased to announce that the Living Universe team will be dedicated to faction warfare for not just the next release, but potentially the next few years. Faction warfare is an incredible area of the game, with many more incredible stories that have been formed in it. However, as we know, it's also an area of the game that has really needed some love for quite some time. We are committed to faction warfare as our primary focus, not just for a single update or even a whole expansion, but potentially for years to come. We're looking at faction warfare as an avenue to deliver new content to the game. This could include things like updates to structures, to territory control, how you take sovereignty or how you capture faction warfare systems, plus balance, new modules. Almost everything could be delivered through faction warfare stories driven by you as the players. To accomplish our goals in faction warfare, we need to update how players declare their allegiances to factions in EVE. We'll be introducing a new allegiance system. So instead of having to join a specific corporation inside a specific alliance to join a militia, instead, you can simply declare your allegiance inside your current group. The new allegiance system will be separate from, but connected to, the standing system. So, for example, you may not even have to, you may be able to simply declare allegiance to any group that you choose. However, they might not accept you if your standings are not high enough. If they don't like you, they don't want you. And you should be able to align yourself with a faction of your choice, whether that be an Empire faction, or perhaps one day, even a pirate faction. And of course, the factions in EVE are wide and varied. They each have their own agendas, the things that they want to accomplish. And they are going to have their own goals in the game. And to their armies and their allied players, they're going to pass down objectives to you to ask them for help completing. Players that help their faction achieve their objectives will be rewarded. And the success or failure of these objectives is not predetermined. If we tie a feature to the game, for example, the Caldari are working on a new Navy ship or something along those lines, and they fail in their objective, it may simply not be released. At least for some time. Whatever the outcome, you will leave a lasting impact on the shape of New Eden. As a faction loyalist, we want you to be able to display your loyalty proudly through systems such as the heraldry system, which CCP Rattati just introduced, and be rewarded for your loyalty as you fight for them, both as you help them achieve their objectives and simply for following them through time, win or lose. Now let's take a look at the state of faction warfare. At the moment, there's 180 systems in faction warfare. Each of them are nearly identical in terms of gameplay. Players fight over control of these systems, but the territory itself doesn't mean very much, beyond where you choose to maybe set up your gate camp. The capture of a system plays almost no role on the space around it. If you capture a system, there's no effect on the neighboring systems. There's very little detail to the shape of space where there could be some. With this in mind, we're looking to add more meaning to the geography of space in faction warfare and eventually beyond. And we're looking to accomplish this by creating a frontline system. This would be a dynamic system where if you capture space, it will change the nature of the space that you're in. For example, in this example, if you're in a system which borders an enemy-controlled system, that system will be declared a frontline. These systems would have new content, higher rewards, and strategic advantage for fighting in them. We're also looking to update the tempo of faction warfare space such that these systems would be slightly faster to capture than the surrounding space. So if you want to push into enemy territory, it might be better to do so from a front line, not that it's going to stop you from sneaking behind and taking systems in their backlines. Systems adjacent to the front line would also be somewhat unique. So these are systems that are adjacent to the front lines, but not adjacent to an enemy-controlled system. We're currently calling these command operation systems. These systems would have their own unique traits, content, and tactical value. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. All of these systems all other systems that are neither a frontline or command operation system would be designated as rearguard systems. Rearguard systems may be less lucrative in terms of faction warfare rewards and slower to flip. However, it may still be possible to sneak past and attack them from behind. On top of the frontline system, we're also looking to build a new system of objectives. Rather than simply an endless tug of war as faction warfare is now, we want the factions of New Eden to declare objectives in space, and we want them to be real and meaningful things that you can help them accomplish. Players allied with their factions will be able to clearly see what their faction's objective is, and they'll have to work with the frontline system to push it into that space, capture it, achieve their objective, and be rewarded appropriately. When and if they succeed. Frontline systems are still in the exploration phase, and we'll be talking with you more about these concepts at the Faction Warfare Roundtable. In the more near future, the Siege Arena update is slated to hit Tranquility this coming Tuesday. This is the key art from that. This update features reductions in the cost of all of the capital ships, creating a very clear balance scaling from dreadnoughts to carriers to faxes. It also contains updates to the reinforcement of medium structures, which we're not done with. Speaking of structures, structures are an integral part of the ecosystem. We want to make sure that there's a healthy balance for them in all areas of space. And we want to ensure that the experience that you have when using them is a good one. It should be as epic and large-scale as it is when you are undocked. Given that, and you guys spend a lot of time docked, like a lot of time. It's kind of a problem, actually. You should. Anyway, given that that's unlikely to change anytime soon, we want to ensure that your experience while docked is a really good one. It should be immersive. And so with that in mind, we're updating the docking experience, starting with Upwell Citadels. These new hangar experiences should feel more like you're inside the docking bay of a busy station, where you can see the other ships docked around you, rather than feeling like you're in kind of your own private hotel room. You should see the station services around your docking bay as well, things like Aura, and perhaps you'll even be able to interact with these things directly in the future. At the moment, we're looking to show other ships with you, and when we say other ships, we mean a lot of ships. So this is the scale that we're going for, that you can see in this clip. At first, these will be the other ships currently in your hangar, so you can kind of look at them as like a pedestal of your trophies. And then potentially in the future, it may also show other players in station with you. And of course, larger capital ships will be getting their own updated docking bays too. Here is some concept art from our wonderful artist, Lorenzo. I have no idea if you can spin it yet. We're also looking to connect the hangar interior more to the outside world by indicating the status of the structure. Here, for example, you can see a structure which is under attack, with fires bursting from pipes and electrical explosions, sirens blaring, hull warning being displayed right in the station. This is obviously a very early work in progress, but it should be really cool to get a really visceral feel of exactly how your station is interacting with the outside world. That's all I have for you today. If you'd like to hear more, please join us at the Faction Warfare Roundtable and the Living Universe presentation, where I'll go a lot more in depth on the sort of things that we're looking at for Faction Warfare. And with that, I'll introduce CCP Loki.
Thank you. Hi there, I'm CCP Loki, and like so many of you, I've been here for a while. But usually I stay more in the shadows, pulling some strings, and during my time here at CCP, I have sort of been up to all kinds of shenanigans. You may remember some of these. And my sort of passion here at CCP have mainly been two things. One, create entertainment and try to avoid being shot. And the second part is world building. I'm quite obsessed with world building. And as you have maybe seen here earlier today, we are doing a lot of things to increase the immersion into EVE and sort of make things sort of come alive inside New Eden instead of EVE. In my mind, EVE is the game. New Eden is this other universe where empires are endlessly fighting. You guys are like in a decade-long feuds and fighting wars out in Nullsec. And just like those stories that have been created throughout the years, when we introduce new features, they should be given their own origin story. And even more than that, you, the players, the capsuleers, should be able to participate in that story. So today, I want to talk to you about how we're going to release future expansions by using narrative-driven development and arcs. As you heard, we are moving away from quadrants, and instead we're going to start creating story arcs. Arc will allow you to participate in the story of New Eden as events takes place, and new discovery gets discovered inside New Eden. In many cases, you'll be able to directly impact on how and when, for example, new ships, modules, or features come into existence. The first arc has already started, so there are clues out there. But understandably, I can't give you any details, as that would sort of defeat its purpose. Now, some of you may remember stuff like the lead up to the
platitudes, blandishments, lies. You of all people know that Concord and the Empires have no interests in common with you. They have done nothing for you. They shall do nothing for you. How long will you listen to their empty words? In recent days, as is their pitiful habit, Concord has made use of you to advance their own agenda. These free trade outposts you have so willingly cleared of my associates have been taken over by Concord's worst, the Cerro. Perhaps you don't believe me? Check for yourself. I have broadcast the new signatures of those sites to all. Why should you not destroy the Cerro bully boys? They have always sought to control you. Do their bidding no more. Open your eyes. Seize your destiny. And, if you would, join me, the Deathless.
You will get, Mike. You will get a lot more of these. Keep your eyes open. There are clues. There are things that you need to find out. It's like during these beginning times of each arc, there will be complete radio silence from us. We will not tell you what ships we're building, what Whatever we're going to pull into the narrative, we want to use the narrative to tie everything together. Everything you've seen here today, the allegiance system, the frontline system, everything is tied together in a narrative. So the universe feels like a living universe. It's alive, it's vibrant. As the arcs progress and things become more clearer, you will probably start to see a lot more of what's coming up inside the game, and you will be given like very clear objectives, most likely by your faction, which you have pledged allegiance to make that thing come into reality. The faction might actually pit you against one another. So, you know, to get something like if we were doing citadels today, you would actually have to do a lot more to have the citadels actually come into the game. And you know, theoretically, if we had done a citadel for each empire, maybe the Kaldari ones would have their citadel first, and the next, you know, first Asterhus first, and the, you know, Amar maybe 6 months later. And these things can, you know, those are things that we're asking you to do. It could be something related to the frontline system. It could also relate you actually to solving puzzles. It's, you know, because the whole idea is that we want to create an experience that doesn't sort of feels repeated. We're not trying to construct a system here. Rather, we want each and every arc to be unique, have its own twists and turns, and various outcomes. This is not a game mechanic per se. This is not a system that happens again, the same way again and again and again. And I know some of you are not really taking part in this mechanic, but still, you should feel that something is going on in the world. So we will start we're ramping up NPC fleets. We are ramping up, you know, stuff like this where we put half-built structures into the game. We will start dressing the world up, and you will actually start feeling and seeing the universe come alive. Of course, not everything can be explained narratively or in character. And tomorrow we'll talk more in details about the future expansions and how they are delivered. We'll also get into more detail about arcs and the narrative development. So I'm hoping to see as many of us as possible here at 11 tomorrow. And of course, we're always open to ideas. In the past, it's no secret that we have kept our, like during the whole lead up to the Abyssal Dead Space, we keep our ears very close to the track. And we have on more than one occasion sort of implemented your ideas into this whole thing. This is a bit like directing a movie where you are the actors and everyone is improvising. It's a bit chaotic, but it's a lot of fun. So I hope to, you know, I really hope we can entertain you and entertain ourselves at the same time. And, you know, thank you, and hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you.
The shenanigans. So, with this complete rethink of factional warfare, we're also setting up for a strong foundation for new players to graduate into. If it's gathering resources or hauling ships to the front lines, they will have a strong purpose in the war machine. This is a massive undertaking, and as borders shift, the empires will be forced to react with new tactics and tools. My sources tell me that due to this rising tension, most factions have already started funneling massive amount of funds to their innovation ministries. And like that, we want the universe to tell as impressive stories as you all create. The empires will play a major part in this story with you. The rich backstory should not only be about yesterday, but also about today and tomorrow. With that, we updated the EVE Universe portal last year, where you all can go in and really dig deep into the EVE lore. And we have plans to expand it even further. We also introduced new comics last year, the Capsuleer Chronicles. Issue 2 is out now, and we have 2 more issues to complete this arc. And then we're going to pull them all together and publish a hardcover that you can actually pre-order right now. Pretty cool. So, we've covered a lot today. It's a pretty long one. And we have a very busy year ahead of us towards the 20th birthday next year. We talked about all the amazing work that the EVE Academy teams are doing on embracing new players, with career agents coming first, and then diving headfirst into exploration. Air Career Program, a new way of finding your way in New Eden. We will welcome new Spanish-speaking players to our awesome, awesome, awesome universe, and other interesting things that we'll be talking more about over Fanfest. We've also covered plenty of interesting visceral candies. Lots of visual updates. Here's just a tiny bit of the things that we have planned. More ways to show your identity. New hangers, a pedestal for your achievements. Photon UI is in full swing, and we will continue to develop it with your input and help. And then we're going to dive into the HUD later in the year, but that's going to be a very long conversation. We want to make that the best we can. We'll talk about more things at Fanfest, and then there are going to be plenty of things that you're going to discover through play. And then we touched on some pretty interesting things on challenging the core, you all. With more focus on narrative-driven development, we will start our journey into more engaging factional warfare. Intibus Credit is a new way of keeping your captains engaged. We will continue to do regular events, releases, and expansions. And the first expansion is actually coming Q4 this year. A Legion system, a new, more meaningful way to support your faction. And then very exciting updates that you will discover and unlock through play. Pretty exciting stuff. We're still investing a lot in the new player experience. But more and more teams are starting to move to features that benefit all, and then into the handshake between the early onboarding and the evergreen through factional warfare. We're also investing heavily into the foundation to set us up for the 3rd decade that actually starts next year, where you and your crew will actually play a key part. There is no time like now, and the future of EVE is very bright. I want to wish you all the best Fanfest. I can't wait to hang out, talk EVE, nerd out, maybe get a couple of ideas into my head. And to close this off, I have a message from the Caldari State Chairman, Akimaka Saraki.
Cold wind remembers the darkest of days. When the rains of our world became laced with fire. One warrior's fierce duty seared a path to our future. The ultimate sacrifice made in blood and steel. We remain Caldari, no matter the cost. Everything we are, we owe to our ideals. They fuel our rise as the heart of a raging storm. A beacon of strength, and a shrine to our identity. Honor and preserve your family, your corporation, your state, without hesitation, without remorse.
Do you all want to see that again, or you want to see it again? Then you have to promise me one thing, two things. First, the guys over there and girls told me that you have to clear the room after we finish the trailer if we play it again. But the second thing, promise me to have a fantastic weekend here. Eve it's going to be amazing, and I can't wait to share more stories with you. Thank you. Play it again.
Cold wind remembers the darkest of days. When the rains of our world became laced with fire. One warrior's fierce duty seared a path to our future. The ultimate sacrifice made in blood and steel. We remain Kaldari, no matter the cost. Everything we are, we owe to our ideals. They fuel our rise as the heart of a raging storm. A beacon of strength and a shrine to our identity. Honor and preserve your family, your corporation, your state. Without hesitation, without remorse.